Are you trying to dominate your fantasy football league? Do you want so many championship rings it's impossible to sign autographs? Well, crack open a beer, pour yourself a glass of bourbon, and settle in, because you've come to the right place. Welcome to Hammercast.
Welcome to the Double D's podcast, which is part of the Hammercast network. I'm your host, Kevin Coleman. And on this episode of the podcast, we have special guest Felix Sharpe from the Devy Debate to talk about his Detroit Lions. Felix, thanks for coming on again. We've had you before. We love you on the show. You're great. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners first where they can find you, some of the work that you've been doing since the last time you've been on, and anything like that.
I appreciate you having me on. The first time I was on was the first time I've ever guest spotted on a podcast, so I'll always remember that. You can find me weekly on the Devy Debate. Right now, we're going through 2021 breakouts, what we think of the 2021 collegiate breakouts in the season, and what we think about this 2021 draft class, all that kind of stuff. I do write a little bit. You can find some of that stuff on Dynasty Nerds. Might be transitioning right now, so we'll see. But I am writing up profiles and stories on players. So just follow me on Twitter at Sharpe Review. That's Sharpe with an E.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. And, just like anything, we're just talking about Lions today, all dynasty ideas and where we can go from here. We've got a lot of news recently, so it's going to be exciting to hear what you said. But before we get to kind of the newer stuff, overall, what for you, like as a whole for the Lions, a 5-11 record, you had a bunch of injuries. Like, what was your opinion of the season this year?
I mean, injuries or no injuries, I think we could see this coming. Matt Patricia just wasn't the guy. I remember when he was first hired, I was like, this is going to end poorly. This guy is a tourist here. He thought that he was the smartest man in the room. And it was really a big contrast between him and Caldwell, who he succeeded. Caldwell was the players coach more so, and Patricia came in MFing everybody and embarrassing players and telling your second round defensive tackle that he didn't have a future in the NFL. So, I think it was my thoughts on the season as a whole were that it was predictable. This is the second time in my lifetime that the Lions fired a coach right after Thanksgiving. They did it with Steve Mariucci also. And so, that's my thoughts about the season. And unfortunately for Lions fans, it's going to get worse. This is not the end of it. It is going to get worse before it gets better. They were 5-11 this season. I would put that at the over/under, and I'm taking the under on 5 wins next season for the Detroit Lions. So unfortunately, this is going to be you can call this the doom and gloom podcast, because there is not a lot of bright spots in Detroit right now. They are completely rebuilding, essentially taking the routes that the Browns did, because it's going to be a while. It's going to be 2 or 3 years before you see this team even getting back into that pretender status, because right now the cupboard is bare.
Well, it was crazy too. Beginning of the year, I know you heard it. They were the sleeper pick to win the NFC North, right? Everybody was talking about them. They had Stafford, Galladay killed me, and we'll talk about Galladay. But in terms of fantasy, but a lot of people did pick the Lions to kind of come out of there. But I think it was more with Patricia, like you talked about. As a head coach, he was 13-29-1. Overall, I know you kind of talked about how he came in. He was definitely different than Jim Caldwell, right? Like I really respect Caldwell. I thought Caldwell actually did an okay job there, right? He competed, and then they brought in Patricia. And I think the one area that I think they really struggle with is on defense, and that was supposed to be his thing. So, what did you see with? I mean, I know kind of what I've heard, like what you kind of mentioned. Was it his scheme, just the way he tried to be maybe mini Belichick, like just stuff like that?
I think that it was his belief that he could outcoach the talent on his team. So they always drafted tweeners on the defensive line. They had defensive ends who couldn't rush the passer and defensive tackles who couldn't stop the run. They were always drafting defensive linemen in that 270-pound-ish range, because he wanted his defense to be multiple, but it was so multiple that they couldn't do anything well. And then at the linebacker position with Jared Davis and Jelani Tavai was just a terrible draft pick. I mean, they never drafted well at the linebacker position, especially when you take that's a first-round pick and a second-round pick, and neither one of them panned out. and neither one of them are going to be a foundation that you build success for this team. Now, actually, Jared Davis had some success rushing the passer last year, but he's supposed to be a roam the field middle linebacker, and he just wasn't that because he didn't have any awareness. So, I forgot what the question was. That was the problem with the defense is that he thought that he could scheme to success, and he didn't draft talent. I mean, Jelani Tavai is the perfect example in that when he was taken in the second round, everybody was like, "What?" If you follow, I can't remember his name, but he puts out the athletic rankings, and I cannot think of what the term that is used, but they used it on NFL.com. And that guy is what is his name? He's a Lions fan, and Jelani Tavai's relative athletic score. So whoever does that, the relative athletic score. Okay. Jelani Tavai was like a out of a 10 scale, he was like a 1 or a 2% athlete, and nobody was thinking about him going in the second round. But again, Patricia thinking that he could turn him into something, and because he was a big linebacker, his size that he fit what he thought. So their problem, at least on defense, was not drafting talent. Yeah. Was not drafting talent. They drafted players to fit their scheme, and that's why they aren't there anymore. So that's why the coaches aren't there anymore, and those players aren't going to be far behind them.
Yeah, no, the relative athletic score guy was Kent Platt.
Yes, Kent Platt. Yes, so I'm talking about. Yes,
at Math Bomb, and he has a lot of good stuff. You guys, if you're listening to it,
he's a Lions fan. He's a Michigan guy, and he's a Lions fan. So
he knows. He knows what he's talking about there. No, and I think Patricia has a role, and then Bob Quinn, right? I think Quinn, he kind of falls in that category as well. I mean, I saw when I was going through here looking, I don't know if you remember Tease Tabor, their cornerback that they selected.
Tease Tabor. Oh, yeah. That's another one. I mean, look up his relative athletic score, Tease Tabor. I think he ran a 4.75. This is a cornerback. Ran a 4.75 at the combine and was wearing shirts talking about watch the tape. No, run a better 40 time. Yeah, and so that was a terrible – he was so bad that they started playing him at middle linebacker in their dime defense. Now, that's actually – inventive, but that's how poor. He couldn't play the position, so they put him at middle linebacker on the dime defense. And I don't even think Tease Tabor is in the NFL anymore. He might be on a practice squad somewhere. But that's a good point.
No, they did. They said he ran the slowest 40 time from any corner at the combine that year, and they said they took him in the second round.
I took him in the second round.
And he allowed 32 catches on 41 targets that year and 5 touchdowns in 22 games. And you can't win NFL if you don't hit those draft picks. I don't care who you are. And so that was all right. So that was bad. They brought in Darrell Bevel, and I thought maybe I've never really been a big fan of his. I thought he was kind of overrated where he's been. That obviously didn't work out. And then they fired these guys. And so now we have a new coaching staff. And I don't know if you saw the press conference, but Dan Campbell, they gave him a 6-year contract. So they realized this is going to be this is definitely going to be a big one. I've been on record. I know a lot of people, I actually put this out on Twitter because I said Bieniemy's got to be the guy, and he should be a guy out there. And if they don't hire guys like him, there's a systematic problem in the NFL. And I got a lot of shit for that. People are saying, "Oh, look at the his head coaching record, or look at his background." Listen, if Dan Campbell can get a 6-year contract with a team, Bieniemy deserves a shot. And so I always thought that would be a good fit for the Lions, but they didn't go that route. What do you think of Campbell?
For people who don't remember, Dan Campbell was a member of the 2008 Detroit Lions team that went 0-16. He was always been a kind of a blocking tight end. I think Dan Campbell is a surprise pick at the position. I think that the Lions were turned down by several coaches, and that's why they had to go with Dan Campbell. Robert Saleh is from Dearborn. That's where the Lions practice facility is. It's off exit 5 on the Rotunda Freeway, off the Southfield Freeway Rotunda Drive. That's where the Lions practice facility is. And Robert Saleh didn't go there despite the Michigan legislature sending a letter to Sheila Ford Hamp saying, please hire this guy. No, but he decided to go with the New York Jets. That's how you know that the Detroit Lions are one of the most inept franchises, that Robert Saleh said, no, I'd rather go to the New York Jets. Yeah. I don't. Dan Campbell's not what we wanted. Okay, Dan Campbell's not what we wanted at all. You have to look at his coaching staff. He hires Anthony Lynn. He hires Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn, I consider Aaron Glenn to be from the Bill Belichick coaching tree because he was a Bill Belichick player with the Jets. And then when Bill Belichick made that jump to the Cowboys, he brought a 30-something-year-old Aaron Glenn to play on that team. Yeah. So I like that. I do not like Anthony Lynn as offensive coordinator. I think his offenses have been largely uninspired. He did have a year in 2016 or 17 or so with the Buffalo Bills where they led the NFL in rushing yards. That was one of those LaShawn McCoy teams. What was really scary about that coaching staff to me is that you have Dan Campbell, a tight end. You have Anthony Glenn, who is a former running back, and then you have the defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, who's a former quarterback or cornerback. This is a team that's going to draft a quarterback. And who is going to develop that player? I didn't see who was going to develop that player. Now, I actually just an hour or so ago, the team announced, or it was reported, that they're going to hire Mark Brunell. Now, the former longtime Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback. That gave me a little bit of a sigh of relief because I didn't see anything else around this team to lend credibility to the fact that they could develop a quarterback. Mark Brunell, I think, gives them some credibility. They've got a tight end at head coach. They got a running back as an offensive coordinator, and they're going to have a rookie quarterback. This is a team that's going to run the ball as much as possible and attempt to control the game script. I know that that's a long answer to the question I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're fine.
Coaching staff in general. I like Aaron Glenn. I don't like Anthony Lynn. And, but they're like I said, they are tearing the whole thing down. So, let's see what happens.
What is your opinion of Deuce Staley? Because I know that they're bringing him in, and they're he was kind of in the running for that. Now he's joining the Lions as a running backs coach. I think everything is set up kind of for Swift, right? Like we're talking about kind of dynasty, and I think they are going to build it around Swift. I just don't know. Running backs years they're short, and so I just don't know if they're going to have him in his prime when they're ready to, if they are ever ready to compete. But, bringing in Staley and having Lynn, I think that bodes well for Swift. But like you said, quarterback's the key. If you don't have a good quarterback in this league, you're done. But I like Staley. I like that pickup, actually.
It's weird. I mean, all of these players, like I saw them play during their actual careers. I mean,
we're getting old, sir. We're getting old.
I don't have a problem with Deuce Staley. I know he, didn't get the Philadelphia job, and so he left there. But running back coaches never make the jump from running back coach to head coach. I mean, Anthony Lynn almost did that. He went from running back coach to offensive coordinator to head coach relatively quickly, but there's never that jump made.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to be an offensive coordinator first. And quite frankly, you don't have a lot of running back coaches become offensive coordinators. Usually it's the quarterback coach that becomes the offensive coordinator. The thing that Deuce Staley coming in tells me, again, is just that this team is going to focus on running the football. And I don't think that that's just going to be DeAndre Swift. I think that DeAndre Swift is going to be used in a multitude of ways. And by the way, DeAndre Swift has never been let's hand me the ball 25 times a game and I'm going to run gap up the middle every play. He's going to be used in multiple ways. And Dan Campbell even said that they're going to use him in the slot. I think that the Lions are going to draft. That's a landing spot for another running back. And if there is a strength on this Detroit Lions team, it is the left side of that offensive line with Decker, Ragnow, and Jonah Jackson. That's actually the only strength, if you can call it a strength, of the team. So, I would buy, I'm going to pay attention to the running back that they take, on day 2 or early day 3, because that player is going to be heavily involved. Hopefully it's someone that provides some contrast to DeAndre Swift. So a bigger running back. I don't know that there are that many of those in this class that I actually like other than the top 4. But no, the Lions are definitely a landing spot for a running back. And as far as DeAndre Swift, I'd still like him in Dynasty, and I still like him as a low-end RB1, high-end RB2, because we saw what James Robinson did for the Jacksonville Jaguars on a sub-optimal offense. And, I mean, you look at the Lions offense and what is there? You've got Swift, Hawkinson.
That's it. Yeah. And
That's
Cephas, don't forget about Cephas, right? He was the guy. Everybody was talking about Cephas when he was coming through. Well, we were talking about that. Well, why don't we get into the draft then? Because, hey, if you guys don't know, Felix knows all. I mean, he's the guy I go to when I'm looking at stuff. When he likes to, he's good at targets. He's looking at guys that he want to get. He's looking at Debbie guys. He's smart at this. And so the big thing is, they have the 7th pick. I would understand that's got to be a quarterback, right? If they're going to the news came out, they're going to move Stafford. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I feel like that's got to be a quarterback in that area. Of the quarterbacks that are probably going to be there, who are you feel like that should be, or maybe they don't go quarterback? What do you think?
I think the likelihood is that they go quarterback because there's not. I mean, at the top of the draft, you're taking quarterback, left tackle, defensive end, maybe cornerback. And I don't know that there is one of those 4 positions other than the quarterback in this class that deserves to be taken at number 7 overall. You have to also believe that we'll keep talking about it later, but I think that they're going to end up with either one or multiple more first-round draft picks after they trade Stafford. Mm-hmm. But yes, so I said I think that it's likely that they go quarterback. But I also believe if you're looking at a long-term plan, the Lions are going to be in the running for the number 1 or number 2 pick next season, and maybe even the season after that. They're going to have a very high pick. Yeah. If the Lions don't so let's say one of the top 2 quarterbacks isn't there. So like Fields isn't there, and maybe they don't like Wilson, what have you. I think that this team is so bad. And if they're looking long-term, well, they could trade down. They probably don't have any business trading up. They could trade down and then look to the 2022 class for their quarterback in either Sam Howell or Spencer Rattler if they're more intrigued by one of those players. But this is absolutely a team that is likely going to get the number 1 pick in the following draft. So I'm not just looking at this one draft in a vacuum in itself, looking at the long-term plan. But yeah, I do think that they could go quarterback, and it's either going to be Zach Wilson or Trey Lance. I think Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are going to be gone, and so it's going to be one of these 2. I'm a really big Zach Wilson fan, and I have been the entire season. But for the Detroit Lions team, I think that the player that can do the most with the least is Trey Lance. Now, he sat out this year, but he's a 6'3", 220-pound athlete who has a cannon for an arm, but he also has outs in the fact that he can run the ball. And this is going to be a team they're going to try not to turn it over. They're going to try to play conservative. And hey, Trey Lance, he didn't play last year. We can develop him as he's, running the ball 10, 15 times a game and using his legs as he did at North Dakota State. And so as much as I like Zach Wilson, I want to see Zach Wilson go to a team that's way more stable. I think that Trey Lance's physical tools will be better served for the instability that's going to exist with the Lions next year.
And that's fair. How you feel about Zach is how I feel about Trey. So this would worry me because we just talked about, they have Brunell coming in there, but I feel like Trey's got to also go to a team that is kind of going to baby him, right? Kind of get him along. Yeah. And I get what you're saying where they can run the ball and stuff, but God, the dysfunction there, I've no disrespect to your Lions, that would kill my Lance love because I just worry about long.
Oh, it's not a good landing spot. And I tweeted about the Mark Brunell hire when it was reported an hour ago, and I was going to tweet they hire Mark Brunell. I like this hire, but the Lions are still a bad landing spot for a quarterback. But I'm trying to be more positive now. I'm trying not to be as negative. But the Lions are absolutely, if your favorite player, offensive player in fantasy, gets drafted by the Lions, you need to downgrade them.
Yeah,
you need to absolutely downgrade them. It's not a good landing spot.
So here are some guys that I've seen, and I want you to kind of tell me what you think about if it was there, what would you see? So I saw Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I love Caleb. I want him to go to Dallas, but I don't know if he's going to fall that far. Or Jalen Waddle. What do you think about Jalen Waddle going there?
At 7?
It says at 7. Hey, this is a mock. You know how mocks are. I don't.
No. They have to draft a. No, there's absolutely not. Can it not be a wide receiver? So of the players that I would like to, I would take any of the top 3 cornerbacks. So Patrick Surtain, the two guys who are sons to players who played in the NFL, Joe Horn's kid, J.C. Horn, and Patrick Surtain's kid, Patrick Surtain II, or Caleb Farley. Caleb Farley has the is it in that mock that you're looking at? Is he the first cornerback taken?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's interesting to me.
Because Surtain to me would be the first quarterback.
Yeah.
My guy.
And so I kind of consider the top 2 to be Surtain and Horn, and I just like the way Horn played against Seth Williams this year, kind of very physical matchup up against a bigger wide receiver, and I just like that. And if you're going to build, so I don't like those picks, by the way, but if you're going to go with one of them, I would take the cornerback because they already got Jeffrey Okudah that they drafted number 3 overall last year. So let's add to a perceived strength. Let's continue to take young talent at that position. And maybe you can they've got Tracy Walker back there who had an up and down season, but I actually still like Tracy Walker. And so maybe you can develop a strength in the secondary if you do take one of these highly rated cornerbacks. But no, absolutely not. I'm absolutely not taking a wide receiver for the Detroit Lions at number 7 overall. Under no circumstances whatsoever. No way.
All right. Yeah. Then hey, it wasn't my mock. Everybody out there, everybody's listening to this. I found one, and mocks are crazy. I saw one mock where I think Fields is going like 16 or later than 16 or 15 of the Patriots. Listen, that's not happening. But when you look at those things now, do you think they address the wide receiver position? Is really stacked in this draft? We know that. Yeah. I did see, and I think our guy Austin always talks about this guy Eskridge from
Kalamazoo stand up from Western Michigan. That's right.
I had to bring him up because he's on the mock. They talked about maybe him being in that later rounds, some guy like that where they can develop because they're going to have to address that position. We'll talk about that. But is Eskridge a guy or, even like my guy, Isaiah McCoy, like those late round guys, are they going to fill in maybe that way?
Isaiah McCoy is somebody that nobody is talking about that people absolutely need to be talking about.
Yes, they do.
And I need to give credit for you for that because you put me on to Isaiah McCoy, and I need to give credit for Austin because he put me on to Dwayne Eskridge. Any of these players after Eskridge and McCoy are probably going to be taken on late day 2, early day 3, and those are players who could absolutely be impact players for an offense because they already were for Kent State and for Western Michigan. I don't have a problem with any of those guys after the first round. Excuse me, not those guys, but like if you're going to take a wide receiver, and this is a stacked wide receiver class, and I absolutely think that they will because Kenny Galladay is not coming back. Marvin Jones isn't going to be there, and I'm not hanging my hat on Mohamed Sanu or Danny Amendola or Quintez Cephas, quite frankly. So it's going to be a question of how does Brad Holmes, how is he going to build his team? That there is a lot of wide receiver. Usually you build your team from inside out, but they already have kind of a strength on the left side of that offensive line. They don't have really good skill position players. And so I could see this team taking 2 or 3 wide, not 3, but 2, maybe 2 wide receivers. And if you get Dwayne Eskridge on day, I thought it was 3. It might be 2 now because Todd McShay says he might be a first-round draft pick.
Oh, yeah.
But somebody like that, especially for a bare cupboard like the Detroit Lions have, Dwayne Eskridge is going to be an impact player, somebody who can stretch the defense, especially if you're running play action and everybody's sucking up on the running game because you don't, and he's going to be able to get behind the secondary. But I like both of those names that both McCoy and Eskridge can do that. And McCoy offers that package in a little bit longer, leaner, taller frame. So no problem with the wide receiver position after the first round.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to address it. You did mention, and this kind of we're on the draft stuff still. You said running back. You said the running back maybe they grab. So you think they're going to? I mean, they can't bring back Adrian Peterson, right? And I feel like Carry-On's probably. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with Carry-On, but Adrian's gone. What running back kind of fits that mold? This running back class is weird. It's complicated. Just someone that I scout these running backs. I don't know about you, but I move my rankings around a lot with this running back class because I just don't know what to fit. After the top 4, it gets really convoluted in there. What's a guy? What guy you got?
Well, my top running back is Najee Harris because of what he can do in the passing game. And then there's a tier of 3 to me. It's Javonte Williams, Ramondre Stevenson, and Travis Etienne, obviously. Okay. I don't really think that Etienne or Harris are going to be there in the second or third round when they need to take a running back. And I do think that they need to get it there. It needs to be someone who you can pair with DeAndre Swift that doesn't duplicate what it is that Swift does. So I want a bigger running back. And that leaves Stevenson and Williams. I don't really like any of the other running backs in this class. And I don't know that there's another one that offers the burst and potential that I'm looking for in a 220 plus pound frame, but Williams and Stevenson do. But Stevenson came to the Senior Bowl at 227 pounds after weighing 247 during his time at OU. So he might be skyrocketing up draft boards. But if you can get either him or Williams on Javonte Williams on late day 3, I think that those are really intriguing options. Not only that, but I wouldn't be afraid to take them in the first round of Dynasty rookie drafts just because DeAndre Swift is there. Because I do think that that's going to be a run first team, and DeAndre Swift is going to be used so much in the passing game that I think that that there's still potential there. Low potential because the offense as a whole is going to be poor, but for another running back to be used on their offense.
No, that's fair. I can't. I'm not gonna. I gotta give you another name, and I want to see it down. So if it's bad, just tell me. I know I see you guys yell on your podcast all the time, and you can do that. What about Elijah Mitchell from Louisiana?
Yeah. Elijah Mitchell.
Because he's going to be a late day 3 pick probably. He's going to be in there. I mean, I see him sometime undrafted. It depends. But he's a bigger guy, and I think
he's 218 pounds. I mean, he has been productive really from the get. ULL is a running back of sorts because there are 2. Raymond Calais was a draft pick last year, and then Elijah Mitchell and Trey Regis are going to be Trey Regis might be an undrafted free agent, but he's going to be in the NFL. And Elijah Mitchell offers size also. That is a pick that wouldn't get me excited, but neither does somebody like Gus Edwards. But Gus Edwards is still productive.
Yeah.
But maybe not necessarily exciting. But the good thing about Mitchell is he's well-rounded. He might not do anything. He doesn't have breakaway speed, but he has the size. He can catch the ball like all of those running backs at Louisiana can. And so I wouldn't be – and maybe you can – if you're excited about him, maybe you can tell me why you're excited about him. But what I see in Mitchell is a well-rounded player who has the requisite size, who is not necessarily dynamic in any particular area. But if you have him – it's good to have him on your football team. What do you think about him?
Yeah, so you kind of hit with me. For your team, I feel like Mitchell's going to have one of those careers where you're like, wow, he's still here, and he's going to be one of those guys like 4 or 5 years where you're like, it kind of like you said Gus Edwards, but kind of like that role where you're like, hey, he's getting like 20 carries this game, and then he kind of disappeared. It kind of depends on his landing spot for me. I like him. I like that he doesn't have a lot of usage, right? Because they have those. They always had 2 or 3 backs that they were kind of using out of there. So I don't think he has a lot of wear and tear on there. But I mean, he's been productive, and he scores touchdowns, and he can catch there. I think he can find a spot. Now, I want him to go to a spot where there's not many people. If you have him on a deputy team, you're probably hoping that he goes to a depth chart that's not as heavy, like in Baltimore, those type of running back situations. But I still think he can fit in there. If he can just, I don't know if he's going to be this explosive in there, but his contact balance I love. And if you're looking for a guy to go between the tackles, he could be a guy that you kind of, you can kind of lean on a little bit, but he's definitely not a running back one. Like, he'll never be that lead back, but I think he'll find a role. But as a Lions fan, if you draft him, you're not gonna, Barry. It's nothing like that, but it's just that solid kind of maybe solidify that backfield a little bit.
I know that we're talking about the Detroit Lions, but I do just want to give a quick Devy plug to the running backs who's going to be taking over at Louisiana Lafayette. Mm-hmm. Chris Smith, who is a speed back out of Naniwea High School in Louisville, Mississippi. Was a Class 1A Mr. Football in Mississippi. That ULL team has averaged over 3,000 yards on the ground the last 3 seasons, and both the 2 backs in front of him, both Ragus and Elijah Mitchell, they're gone next year. Yeah. So I think Chris Smith is going to be a great running back in C2C formats and just somebody to pay attention to in the Sun Belt. So
no, that's fine. That's why I bring you on here, Felix. We like you to drop knowledge so people can learn, and you're way smarter at that stuff than I am. I'm a little behind. I get a little behind here. All right, so what we're gonna do now for everybody listening, like we usually do, we're gonna go through each position, kind of talk about it. I'm gonna throw kind of guys out. Dynasty buys, sells. I have real life trades from DLF that I'll kind of have him say, I would do that. Maybe I wouldn't. But first we got to give due to our boy, Matthew Stafford. I have Stafford in a lot of Dynasty leagues because I love the guy. I always have, even though I'm not a Lions fan. I really love him as a player. He's tough. He's one of the toughest quarterbacks I've ever seen play the position. He's probably one of Georgia's best quarterbacks. He's a legitimate prospect. He was fun. What do you have to say about Stafford, kind of where and then I would like to know, where do you think he goes? We've been hearing a lot of rumors, and none of us really know. But what would be a good spot for him? What do you think would be that area where you think he'd go there?
Can I answer both questions? What do I think of Stafford?
Yeah.
There is a photograph from the Detroit Free Press where the Lions trainer, and I can picture his face, I can't think of his name, but the Lions trainer is leaning back and pulling Matthew Stafford as Matthew Stafford is leaning forward and trying to go onto the field. This is after the Browns game in 2009, I believe, where his shoulder was separated. His left shoulder was separated on a Hail Mary before the end of the game, and he was trying to get back into the game to throw the winning touchdown to Brandon Pettigrew. So there's that photograph. That emphasizes who Matthew Stafford was as a Detroit Lion. He was an Iron Man, always trying to get on the field, always trying to do more for this franchise, even though all that he didn't get him anywhere. If I'm a team out there that needs a quarterback, I'm in a fan base whose team needs a quarterback, I would be elated if I got Matthew Stafford. If he goes to San Francisco, he's an upgrade. If he goes to Indianapolis, he's an upgrade. There's most places that he's going to go to, he's going to be an upgrade. And I still think that Matthew Stafford, I think he's 32 years old. I think he's a year younger than I am.
Yeah.
I think he's going to play until he's 40. So he still has 8 years left. And we saw Drew Brees and Tom Brady play to a very high level in their 40s. I think Matthew Stafford is, and we saw Aaron Rodgers is the MVP of the league. He's 37 years old. And I think that Matthew Stafford still has really, really good years left with him. And I would be excited if the team that got Matthew Stafford off also brought Kenny Golladay. Where do I think that he lands? Well, I'm hopeful because I do like Matthew Stafford. I'm hopeful that he lands in a place that is ready to win and that has a coaching staff that's ready to make things easy for him, but the coaching staff that knows what it's doing. And so I think everybody who has an interest in an offensive player puts that offensive player in either New Orleans or San Francisco. Yeah. And personally, I like what San Francisco has with Brandon Ayuk and with George Kittle, and the fact that the Shanahans over their lifetime, like not just Kyle, but Mike Shanahan, they've been able to make a running back out of seventh and undrafted free agents, 7th round picks and undrafted free agents. So they have a lot of credibility, and you got the Bosa's and Fred Warner on the defensive side. And so I would want, and they have the 11th pick, I think. So send Matthew Stafford to San Francisco and give me that. I think it's the 11th pick. Give me that 11th.
12.
Is it 12? Give me 12 and give me something else. Matthew Stafford, go to San Francisco, get your San Francisco treats, and enjoy the rest of your career.
No, I'm glad you brought up that game. I'll never forget that game. That kind of solidified my love for Stafford, just how tough he was. But, another team for me as someone who owns Stafford, and you shouldn't trade him, by the way. I've seen some trades go down where you're like, why would you get rid of him? I would the coaching staff to me scares me, but Denver with the weapons, with Sutton, Fant, all those, Judy, I feel like, and with that 9th pick, that could be an interesting, would they do it? And I think they might. Locke is Locke. I don't think he's NFL quarterback. I don't think he's ready, definitely. But, Denver might be that area where they go. Could you, imagine if you guys had that when you're looking at your picks, imagine having the 7th, 9th pick. That's definitely more 2 top 10 picks. If you can hit on those, that could be talent, and it helps Stafford out. And any state goes to AFC where, if you look at the NFC, AFC, I don't know what area you want to be, probably NFC with Mahomes and Allen, but I think Denver could be a good spot for him.
I mean, you mentioned a few of those weapons, but you also got Noah Fant there and KJ Hamler, and Judy and who's the guy who was on IR?
Albert O.
No. Well, I forgot about Albert O.
Yeah.
But the wide receiver from
Sutton.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton. There. Yeah. So that's attractive too. I mean, I think we've seen Matthew Stafford rise above poor coaching staffs in the past, and we've seen the Broncos go out and do everything they could to get a quarterback when they got Peyton Manning. So that's a good landing spot too. When you get 3 spots higher than San Francisco. The only thing is he's going to have to deal with Kansas City, twice a year. So
that would be the only downfall. Now, as far as the Lions go, we can already talk about the draft stuff. So obviously this will be a little quicker, but like you said, they could be maybe going for next year. And so there are some free agent quarterbacks I was going to mention. I hate to say this to you because it'll hurt me too, but Trubisky is out there. Maybe Fitzpatrick. Andy Dalton. I'm just thinking a bridge. Maybe Cam Newton. I mean, Cam's still out there. There are guys that maybe they just do a 1 year, hey, I'm here, kind of a stopgap. We know we're going to be probably struggling. We'll shoot for that quarterback next year. Do you think that's an option at all? Those guys? I mean, there's other guys out there, but those are kind of ones that to me make sense. Jacoby Brissett. Maybe do any of those guys sound appealing? Probably not, as I said.
Appealing, no, but likely. I mean, I think either Fitzpatrick or Jacoby Brissett to mentor a young quarterback, or maybe to start the first 8 games of the season and kind of protect and insulate that quarterback's development. Yeah, I could see that, but that it's not something. I don't know that Jacoby Brissett would necessarily be attractive. I tell you what. I mean, you mentioned Jacoby Brissett. I'm still really high on Chad Kelly. I don't care what anybody has to say. I don't know if Chad Kelly is still with the Colts. He might be on their practice squad or the 4th string on their depth chart. But if we gave Chad Kelly a shot, or some team gave Chad Kelly a shot, that would get me excited. He just needs to get his head together, but he's always played well in the preseason. He was great at Ole Miss, and so I'm still looking forward to Chad Kelly to get his shot. And if the Lions brought him in and say, all right, we'll make you the backup, they're not going to do that. I'm just doing wishful.
Hey, he's a free agent. Hey, you never know.
Chad Kelly's a free agent.
He made $33,000 last year on the Colts. That was his base salary. It was $33,000, but obviously he had his average salary. But yeah, so hey, our boy Chad. Running back for me is DeAndre Swift. So if we go to the running back position, the key thing for me is we've kind of mentioned this already. So again, they're going to try to bolster up that. But when you're looking at the dynasty running backs, so we're looking at them, I think the top 5 are pretty intermixed. You have CMC, Cook, Henry, Kamara, Chubb, Barkley's in there. Of the rookie running backs, though, of where you're at, where do you see him at? Do you think he's above Cam? Do you think he's above Jonathan Taylor? Some people have them above him. Some people have them below them. Where do you find him in that great rookie class?
I think in Dynasty, I'm still taking Jonathan Taylor 1. I'm probably taking J.K. Dobbins 2.
Okay.
And then it's a toss-up between Akers and Swift.
Okay.
And it's just, but I think you have to put Akers in front of him because how Akers finished the season. And so I think that he's still in there 4. But that said, that running back class was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, any one of those running backs would be the number one running back in this class. Akers, Dobbins, Taylor, Swift. They would be the number one running back in this class. So that's not a knock on Swift, the fact that he would be 4. I mean, he's still a very good running back. It was just happened to be a very stacked class.
I put him at, before all this stuff kind of happened, I put him, I think, at running back 14, like right outside the top 12. I had him in my Dynasty rankings. Fantasy Pros has him at 16. I still think I'd have him like ahead of Joe Mixon, to be honest. And I'm a Mixon truther. I am. I believe in his talent, but I just like Swift's role where he's at. But I think he's that solid running back 2. With a running back 1 kind of the potential, right? He has that potential. But we just don't. There's so many question marks right now. But this could be a good time to get him. Would you give up a first for him, like this year? At the first round, where would you be comfortable giving up a first for?
Yes, I would give up a first. It's just a matter like, would I give up the 101 for him? And I actually think that I would, especially if I needed a running back, because like I said, I think the 101 in non-super flex leagues, Najee Harris is the 101.
Yeah.
And I would take DeAndre Swift over Najee Harris. So that means I would give up the 101 for DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift is going to be a high floor player given his role in both the passing game and running game. And so, I would give up the 101 for DeAndre Swift. But I would give up the 101 for all of those running backs, though. Taylor, Swift, Dobbins, and Akers.
Yeah. What about Gibson and those guys? No, not yet. Not 101.
Antonio Gibson.
It's close.
That is close. Like, if their quarterback situation, because I think Washington is on the rise.
Yes.
If their quarterback situation was stabilized, I might give up. That's a closer one. That's a harder one, but it's harder.
Because there's a little bit of who are they? Are they going to use McKissick more? There's a lot of options there, and who's their quarterback going to be? I have another deal for Swift and a second for Dalvin Cook.
That's a good one too, because I think you still have to take Dalvin Cook.
Yeah,
you got to take Dalvin.
If I'm getting rid of Dalvin, I want a first back. So, like if you're making a deal where you're kind of rebuilding, I still want a first because I still think Dalvin and a first plus Swift is equal.
Yeah, and I can see what that person is thinking. Like you're trying to get rid of Dalvin before he hits that cliff. But I mean, we kind of saw Aaron Jones go off a mini cliff this year, and you just want to get that before Dalvin hits it. But I still think that you have to get I agree with you that you got to get a first back. So, but I'm taking Dalvin in that one.
Okay, yeah, and really quick, just because I know we're here, but Swift and Metcalf straight up.
DK?
That happened in a league. Swift for Metcalf, and that's an interesting deal because right away you think it depends where you have Metcalf. I have him in my top 5. But running backs are, wide receivers is a different. There's a lot of good wide receivers you could fill into that category. Swift's one of those running backs that you could have on your dynasty roster for a long time that could fit. But that's an interesting deal. I think I still take Metcalf, but it's not.
Well, I was going to say, like, I want my teams to be good for a long time, and I like investing in wide receivers. The question is if would I give up DeAndre Swift for DK Metcalf? That I think if I had either of those players, I would be hesitant to trade them. But on that side, this is hard. This is really hard, Kev.
It's a tough one. I know.
I think that I'm leaning Metcalf. Yeah.
No, I mean, but it's close. I love those deals. I like getting those deals in my inbox, not the crap that I usually get, like a 4th round pick for DeAndre Swift. It's like, no, I'm not trading you a 4th round pick.
I'm gonna say that more solidly. It is DJ Metcalf. I mean, DJ Metcalf has been a wide receiver 1 already, and DeAndre Swift has not reached RB1 status. So based on production, you have to go DK Metcalf now that I'm thinking about it, pretty easily there.
I think Metcalf is there, but hey, next year though, that deal might look flipped, right? Like that's what I always laugh about. Now, as far as the other running backs there, Carry On, is he coming back? I think he's still under contract, right? So they'll be bringing him back. I know you talked about Gus Edwards. There's some interesting kind of stopgaps in there that they can maybe bring in. I think Mike Davis is unrestricted. Todd Gurley is unrestricted. I don't know if you want to go that route. Kenyon Drake, but that's probably too expensive. Leonard Fournette's still there. There's a lot of guys out there. Do you think they bring somebody like that in? They're going to probably draft one. Where do you think you go?
None of those players make sense to me because I don't believe that the Detroit Lions are trying to win next season. I don't think that they can win next season. So all of those players, they're not going to sign with Detroit anyway. Because those players are Todd Gurley might not even be playing in the NFL next year. I think that all the players that you listed that they're going to look for teams that are going to be playoff contenders, and that's why I really think that it's likely that the Lions draft a running back if they don't just say, all right, we're going to go with Kerryon and Swift to this season. So
no, that's fair. All right, so let's go to wide receivers then, because this is a position you guys are gonna have to upgrade. We talked about the draft already, but do you think Marvin Jones or Galladay? You think? I don't think Galladay comes back. Marvin Jones, you think they give him a contract worth coming back for?
Nope. I don't know why they would. I don't know why, and I don't know Marvin Jones' free agency status if he is an unrestricted free agent when he leaves the season. But let's just say hypothetically that that he has the potential he could leave the team. Mm-hmm. Any of these players that are right at the end of their prime or in the middle of their prime, unless you give them a ridiculous contract, they're not going to stay. And the Lions they're not going to give a top 5, top 10 contract to Kenny Galladay because they're not on the cusp of being a contending team. It just doesn't make sense. And so that it's a poorly run organization if they actually do sign Kenny Galladay to that sort of contract. Kenny Galladay's gone. And again, I don't know Marvin Jones' contract status.
He's unrestricted. He's unrestricted.
He's going to be unrestricted. So neither one of those. I think the top 3 receivers are all going to be gone in Amendola, Jones, and Galladay. And so it's again a bare cupboard there at wide receiver. I think that they got. I think Geronimo Allison is under contract after having sat out this year, opting out due to COVID. Okay. So you're looking at Geronimo Allison and Quintez Cephas.
What is your opinion of Cephas? Because everybody has been kind of biting him up. I mean, as far as Dynasty goes, I mean, he got traded literally 2 days ago for Todd Gurley. I actually kind of like that if you have Todd Gurley because you got something for Todd Gurley. Mm-hmm. Quintez Cephas for, Darrington Evans from Tennessee. So his value is very it's still low.
If you want him, you can get him. Yeah.
If you want him, you can go grab him, and he might be a volume guy if they depending on who they bring in. But what has been your opinion of him? I didn't watch him much, and to be honest, when he was coming in, I wasn't really high on him. But what have you seen there?
I never liked Quintez Cephas. Matt Waldman loves Quintez Cephas, and Jeffrey Okudah loved Quintez Cephas at the combine last year. When they asked him who was the toughest cover that he had, and he said Quintez Cephas. But the thing is Quintez Cephas is a sub-athlete contested catcher, and I like the twitchy. On the spectrum between Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers on the one hand and Deontay Johnson on the other hand, someone who's a twitchy sub out. Like I'm going to go on the Deontay Johnson side. I don't really care that you can jump and make acrobatic catches, and that's kind of the side that Quintez Cephas fits on. All of that said, he's going to be in his second year with a new quarterback and could potentially be the primary wide receiver. And Matt Waldman loves him. So, and Matt Waldman has had a lot of good calls. And so, but I'm still not I'm not actively looking to. I'm not. If you can trade Darrington Evans for Quintez Cephas, that might be something that you should do because Darrington Evans. Well, when is Darrington Evans going to start for your fantasy team? Not ever. And Quintez Cephas could potentially. So that sounds like a smart trade. If you can make a swap like that, but I'm not trading. I don't even know that I'm trading like a 4th round. Maybe depends. I think this class is really stacked. I like that's the kind of the value that I'm thinking of. Will I give up a 4th round pick for Quintez Cephas, because I really don't think I'm giving up a third-round pick in a 12-team Dynasty rookie draft. So
no, don't give up a third. Maybe a fourth would be something if I'm sitting there and I'm in the fourth round and I'm on the clock and I'm like, I don't really like this. Maybe I'll take a shot, but I wouldn't do anything now. Definitely. No, I agree with you there. Man, Darrington Evans, that was my guy last year. And then he got drafted by the damn Titans and it just ruined everything. I thought maybe he would have a chance, but he just, damn it. Yeah, he's stuck there. So
the Titans brought back Donta Foreman, I believe, right? So.
Yes. Yeah, it's a nightmare. My Dynasty teams are hurting. Now, so there's some free agent wide receivers a little bit. I just want to give a couple out real quick. John Ross, anything?
I love me some John Ross. Yes, I would love. Yes, if you're going to have a team that is going to run the football, get some wide receivers that can beat safeties over the top and play action. And John Ross, we're just talking about him with Austin yesterday. Yeah. Austin said he never liked him. I've always liked John Ross, even before his 40 time. He's one of those twitchy wide receivers, doesn't have great hands. But we've seen John Ross be a wide receiver one in fantasy over several weeks. Yeah. The Bengals just wanted to shelve him, but no, that is absolutely the type of player that I would want. Especially you think of like Trey Lance, okay? We're going to run quarterback power with Trey Lance. We're going to, get Javonte Williams, and we're going to run gap. And then so who's going to be the person that can stretch the defense? Because we know that those safeties are going to be in the box versus a poor Detroit Lions team. Yeah, go ahead and get John Ross, who I thought was actually showing some improvement later into his career before the Bengals shelved him. So I like that one.
I'm glad I found a feather John Ross truther. I think John Ross could be good if he gets that opportunity. I really, in 2019, he still had, when you're looking at it, he still had 56 targets. He had 28 catches, 506 yards, 3 touchdowns. I know he's playing for.
Is that in 2018?
2019.
I think in 2018 he was 10th in the league in red zone targets, targets, and that's because he's a small wide receiver who can create separation in a tight box. I mean, I really like John Ross.
And the reason why I bring him up too, guys, because it always fluctuate your dynasty rosters and always look for it. So like he went straight up for Julian Edelman. So someone traded John Ross for Julian Edelman. Right now with Julian Edelman, he's kind of up in the air. I think he probably has 1 year left, depending on who gets there in that quarterback position. But if you're trying to go young, and they got a 3rd round pick with John Ross, that's kind of how you can fluctuate, get that lower end roster, and you're not going to get stuck with Julian Edelman.
Even getting the 3rd round pick, if it's in this class, that's a damn smart trade.
No, I love it. I love those type of deals. And and that was a couple of days ago. So that again, when you look at these roster, I always try to give you trades that happened in the last couple of weeks. And then John Ross straight up for Isaiah Ford. I mean, I think I'd rather have John Ross.
I'd rather have John Ross, yeah.
So John Ross is out there. And I brought this up on a podcast. It was in the year, and I said, hey, John Ross is actually a sneaky buy, and everybody laughed at me on the podcast. But I'm still standing by it, damn it. I think John Ross is a sneaky buy because he's going to find himself on a team. And if he finds himself on a team like the Lions, who needs volume and he's going to get targets, that could be a sneaky play as like a sneaky wide receiver that you're going to have to start in certain situations.
I mean, just think about John Ross. John Ross doesn't need to have 3 catches to win you your week because he can have 2 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's the type of player that John Ross is. Kev, on the on my the Sharpe review early season bold predictions, I had John Ross being the wide receiver 1 because I thought that Joe Burrow was going to come in and be better than Andy Dalton, and John Ross was going to develop. It just didn't work out that way. Yeah. But no, I'm still high on John Ross. I actually own John Ross. Like on all of my teams, I already own him, so I can't go acquire him.
But hey, that's a good option to go out there and look for. Especially, we're talking about, right, guys, it's January, almost February. This is the time to kind of sneak in and grab some of those guys. I want to talk about the tight end position because Hawk's my boy. Hawkinson is a guy that I have everywhere. Now, I did see someone on fantasy Twitter, and they were talking about that you should sell Hawk, and I thought I didn't think that was correct. I think that you're holding Hawk right now. You have to hold Hawk. But I would actually actively try to buy Hawk because you're going to get people like that think that you should sell him because, he's going to go down. I still think he's a top 3 dynasty asset based on his age and his talent. What do you think about that? What do you think about Hawk being a tight end 3, tight end 4 in Dynasty?
All right. Well, I'm thinking off the top of my head. So you got Waller, Kelsey,
Kittle,
and then Hawkinson. So I mean,
that's how I feel.
Yeah. No, the thing is what is that? What is the tight end 4 worth in Dynasty? And so if we're talking about selling in this class, and I could get a back end first round draft pick, or I can take Terrence Marshall or Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is going to be taken late in the first round. So if you're talking about trading for a second round draft pick, no. But in this class, if you're talking about trading for a late first, I would pay attention to that, because I mean, a good season for TJ Hawkinson next year is going to be what, 700 yards and 5 touchdowns or so. I mean, I think that's a good season for. I do like TJ Hawkinson. I do like him, but again, that offense next year is going to be, in the bottom half of the league at best. In passing yards. They're going to be a run-first team, and you're talking about TJ Hawkinson, who could be. He's not Kittle. He's not Kittle. He's not. He's not going to break off long touchdown run after the long touchdowns after the catch. He's going to be still somewhat touchdown dependent, and that's going to be an offense that doesn't score a bunch of touchdowns. And I'm not trying to poo-poo TJ Hawkinson. I like TJ Hawkinson. It just I don't have a good sense for what you could sell him for. And so I agree with you that he would be a hold, unless, again, that I can get a late first round pick for him.
So if I'm looking straight up, so in some leagues that I've seen, it's really hard because a lot of people just kind of throw him in. But if you're looking at just straight up in a 12-team, like PPR scoring, he went straight up for, Marvin Jones and a first-round pick. And the first-round pick was like 111, so 1.11, so at the back end of the first round.
I have to say that I think there are a lot of wide receivers in this class that I'm really high on. And so it's not Marvin Jones. It's the fact that I'm getting that late first. And I can ask you, Kev, would you rather have Jalen Waddle or TJ Hawkinson? I think that you would rather have Jalen Waddle. I mean, would you rather have Terrace Marshall or TJ Hawkinson? I think that you'd rather have Terrace Marshall taken, in the second round than TJ Hawkinson, just because those wide receivers have such higher ceilings. So TJ Hawkinson feels safe, but you could have a much higher upside in that late first round in this class. If it was 2022, I'd be like, no, thank you. But in this class, you could really hit on one of those late first round picks.
Yeah, and I think I like the tight end class actually in this class.
Yeah,
obviously, I know Pitts is Pitts, but I love Brevin Jordan. He's my guy. He's my flag planner. So if you can get maybe a first round and you have a couple seconds, you can grab Jordan in the second, probably late second, third, depending on it. And that's actually pretty good production, like you just talked about, like where you think Hawk's going to fit. And now you just added Waddle or Marshall, who I like too.
Can I throw in 2 names in this tight end class that nobody's talking about? One is Tommy Tremble out of Notre Dame. If there was a combine, Tommy Tremble would be one of the more athletic tight ends in this class. He's 240 pounds, so not, he's on that Walker out of San Francisco and Tennessee. I can't remember. I can't believe I'm forgetting people's names, but he's a smaller tight end. Yeah, smaller tight end.
Delaney Walker. Yeah, you're talking about?
Yes, Delaney Walker. Yeah, Delaney Walker. That type of tight end, but boy, can he play every single position, including fullback if you need to. And he's one of the best blockers in this class, which I don't think is that's not a question. He's one of the best blockers in the class. And then the other is and I don't want to spend a lot of time, but Zach Davidson out of Central Missouri. Zach Davidson is 6'7", 247 pounds. And Central Missouri didn't play this season because of COVID, but the season prior, I think he had 900 yards on 40 catches. So he's averaging, 20-something yards or 90-something yards a catch. So Zach Davidson is somebody I'm paying attention to, and Tommy Tremble. Tommy Tremble is going to be drafted. Zach Davidson, I'll be interested to see where he goes.
Yeah, no, those are 2 guys I like. My guys, if we're going to, what the hell, why not? So a couple tight ends that I could see you also grabbing with those picks. If you did trade Hawk, I love Noah Gray. I think that he is solid. I'm not saying he's going to be like, whoa, but I could see him being like Heath Miller-ish, that kind of role. And then my boy Hunter Long from Boston College, that dude is a dog. Like when you watch him play, we talked about this with Ben Eby the other night, and we talked about intangibles. That dude's got intangible. That dude just plays hard. He can catch. He's got pretty good hands. He's actually not terrible yards after the catch. Like he can actually move a little bit. Yeah. I actually did, and even we're not even talking about the Ole Miss. Kenny, I always say his last name wrong. Kenny Yabaro
or
whatever. Yeah, I can never do it. My bad, Kenny. But that even those guys, we're not talking about the class that we had last year. Last year's class was, this year's class. And so I could see you getting rid of Hawkinson, maybe, if you can get that first back like we talked about, because there's guys in this group that you can be like, wow, hey, yeah, that fits my team better. I'm going to go that route. And if you have depth, I love that, because I'd love to get Waddle. That's a guy that I'm really targeting.
So, yeah, out of those, I haven't watched a lot of Yeboah, and I haven't watched a lot of Gray Austin. I think Austin talked about Gray on the show yesterday, but Hunter Long, was the focal point of that Boston College offense. Is going to be a great pass catcher for a team. Yeah, I agree with you. This tight end class is stacked. If you need a tight end, and who doesn't? Everybody needs a tight end. So, this class probably goes, 6 or 7 deep that I'm interested in, and I'm not including like somebody like Zach Davidson, who I think is a day 3 or undrafted free agent type of player that I'm really interested in. So
to me, Hawkinson's a sell depending on price. I still think it's a hold just because I think he does have value. But if you have some maneuverability that you can do those things, obviously you always look at it. Don't stay stagnant. Always look for that. After that position, overall, I think we covered a lot. Personally, I love talking to you. I really enjoy our friendship now. I'm glad that we met on here. And so one of the things I like to hear about is like, your favorite Detroit Lions player, like just kind of like growing up, we all have our favorite players, and it can be a ton, past, present, and whoever. I know Barry probably is in there somewhere and all these guys, but to you, who is that guy?
Yeah, this is an easy question, and it's Herman Moore. When I was growing up, I was a wide receiver, and I wore 84 because of Herman Moore. And Herman Moore was my favorite player until 1998, and a wide receiver named Randy Moss entered the NFL. But I was a big Herman Moore fan. As a 9 and 10-year-old, I went to his camp twice, and he was actually there and leading the drills and all that stuff. So I was a big, I had my Catch 84 camp t-shirts for a long time. I wish I could still find them somewhere, but I can't. But it's the person that he was, and how he treated all of us, all of the campers. And it wasn't a big camp. You're talking about like 20, 30 kids. It's not a big camp, and he was spending like intimate time with kids. So I was always really fond of Herman Moore. Had Herman Moore jerseys growing up. That was like my birthday present. So, Barry's up there, but for me, it's very easily Herman Moore is my favorite line of all time.
See, this is why I like talking about this stuff, because like I knew Herman Moore, but I didn't know like that kind of stuff. It's valid, and I know that you're a big Lions fan. Overall, when do you think is the next year realistically in this rebuild? We'll finish it at this. Where do you think? When do they make the playoffs? Like, when could they be a playoff team? Oh, well, look at your eyes. Maybe 4 years, 3-4 years.
I don't know that you can answer that question because the tear down hasn't even really started yet.
Yeah, we have
to going to begin with this year, with getting rid. Galladay's leaving, Jones is leaving, Stafford's leaving, Adrian Peterson's going to be gone. What are they going to do on the right side of their offensive line? You can't answer that question until we get through, a little bit of this season, so we can see what their foundation is. Because right now, I don't know that they have one. I don't think that you can call, DeAndre Swift the foundation for a playoff team. I don't think you can call T.J. Hawkinson the foundation of a playoff team. They don't have anything on defense to be the foundation of, even a winning franchise. So I would answer that question if I could,
That's
but
fine.
we don't. We're not there yet. So
I'm trying to give you some hope, Felix. I'm rooting for you guys.
I'm used to it. So
listen, I'm a Michigan fan. I get it. All right. I understand we are stuck in mediocrity and it's kind of there. And I understand that. But hey, if you're listening to this and you've following it, I cannot express enough. I'm going to let him talk about other stuff too, and what he's going to be coming up in the future. But at Sharpe Review, you follow him on Twitter, follow his work, his podcast, and he does a great job just explaining things. He's smart. And he's just one of those guys that gets it. And so I can't thank him enough for coming on and spending some time with me. Now it's 2 times. So now he's a special guest. He's not just like, yeah, here he is. And so, Felix, why don't you just tell us, what do you have coming forward? Are you have any off-season plans? I know you guys podcast and all everything, anything you're looking forward to where they can see it, and just thank you for coming on again.
You can follow the Devy debate. The last time I was on your show, I mentioned my friend Brandon Lejeune's podcast. I just had a brain fart. No, our podcast is called the Devy Debate, and we record every Wednesday. Follow the Devy Debate wherever you get your podcast. You can follow me at Sharpe Review. So that's where you can find me. I do write. I don't know where I'm writing just yet. I'm going to find that out here shortly, but I do love writing, and when I do, you can follow at Sharpe Review. I'll be posting it there. So,
oh, look at that, big news coming! So I'm excited for you there. No, and as always, you guys can follow me at DeVoids_22, Hammercast.com. If you're listening to this tonight, I have a Kenneth Gainwell piece going up tomorrow. So I wrote my recent one. I have a Brevin Jordan and a Trey Lance piece. And so you can always find a Hammercast. In our next podcast, we'll be talking about my hated Ohio State Buckeyes. So we will be talking about the Devy outlook there. So I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight, and thank you, Felix.
Did you get all that? If not, make sure you head over to hammercast.com, subscribe, and join the Hammer Nation. Until next time, keep grinding.